When the kids grew up and, as they say, flew out of the family nest, my wife Maria and I were left to live alone on our farm. The sons went to study in the city. After graduation, they started working, started families, and began to live completely independently. They even helped my wife and me when we decided to become farmers. We were still quite young and full of strength. Our small farm was located near the village in a very beautiful place, surrounded by forest on almost all sides. Between the village and the farm, there was a large field which we rented and then were able to buy from the local administration. We started breeding goats of various breeds. They supplied the entire surrounding area with goat milk and cheese. Both in the city and summer residents who visited the village took dairy products from us. I often went to fairs, met other farmers, and shared my experience. Farmers coming from other cities to the fair often asked to share their secret, why our milk and cheese are so delicious. And we didn't hide anything and were happy to say that we just really love our business, our animals, and we also love the people for whom we try to do the best and most delicious. That's the whole secret. Our products have already become famous not only in our region but throughout the entire region. Many orders began to appear. It was necessary to expand production. The sons helped get a loan from the bank. With this money, they built a new warm pen for the animals and increased the livestock. In the summer, workers were hired to mow the grass and prepare hay for winter storage. In general, everything was going well until one early morning, something inexplicable happened. Arriving for the morning milking, my wife and I discovered that a couple of small milk cans had been knocked over. The plastic lids were chewed and scattered. It felt like milk had been deliberately spilled on the floor. Having carefully examined the entire room, we did not find any traces of penetration. This strange scenario repeated itself for a couple more days. My wife and I conferred and decided that we needed to set up an ambush to find out who was putting things in order on our farm. It was hot summer outside, the nights were warm, so it was possible to set up an ambush right in the open air. I built a bed in a hollow between two bushes, covered the bushes with a camouflage net, took water and some food with me, otherwise I would have to sit in ambush all night. Having settled comfortably in my hiding place, I began to wait. Closer to the morning, when I'd already lost my vigilance and began to doze off, I heard some kind of nervous excitement in the pen with the goats. I became alert and tense. Suddenly, from the pre-dawn dawn, from the direction of the forest, two yellow dots appeared which began to approach the barn where the milk was stored after the evening milking. In the light of the lantern, the figure of a lynx appeared, a red-haired beauty with black spots, a short black tail, and funny tufts on her ears. She carried her little kitten in her teeth. The cat walked around the barn and disappeared around the corner where it was not visible. I still don't understand how it gets inside. Then, sounds were heard in the room. It was clear that the animal had knocked over the milk can. I sat in my hiding place, completely confused about what to do. Drive her away, but I didn't have any weapons with me. The lynx is a dangerous animal, and it is better not to engage in open combat with it. I waited until the night guest left on her own. The lynx left just as it had appeared, walked around the barn with the lynx cub in its teeth, and disappeared into the forest. I hurried home to tell Maria about the night's incident. My wife was a kind, caring, and very wise woman. Since the lynx, like any wild animal, is afraid of people and does not want to meet them, then Maria clearly suggested something wrong here. She risks her life and the life of her cub by coming to human habitation. The lynx comes for milk, which means she has nothing to feed her little lynx. Either she has little milk or no milk at all. You know, my wife said, so that she doesn't ruin our barn, spoil the food, and don't scare the goats, Let's pour milk into her bowl in the evening and leave it on the street near the barn." And so they did. In the evening, the wife milked the goats, poured milk into 2 bowls, and left a treat for the forest cat. But I still decided to follow it again to make sure that everything would work. Everything was repeated exactly as last night. Only now the lynx and her cub were happily sipping milk from each of their bowls. Since then, every evening we left a treat for our charges, and in the morning we found 2 empty bowls. But over time, the visits became less frequent and then stopped altogether. Apparently, the little lynx grew up and switched to mice, birds, and other animals that his mother taught him to catch. Autumn has come. It's time for mushrooms and berries. I wanted to pick mushrooms for asp and berries for jam. My wife began to go into the forest early in the morning. In the forests, she knew all the mushroom and berry places well. That morning, she warned me that she would go to a distant clearing. The wife left very early, but did not come by the time she was supposed to return. I got worried. We had to go and look. My heart sank treacherously and I felt that something had happened to her. There was no time to run to the village to ask for help. I'm always used to relying only on myself. Got ready to go. He quickly took food, water, a knife, a hatchet, and a rope from both of them and moved along the familiar route. Walking along the road that went deep into the forest and led to that very clearing, I noticed a trace of a car that had passed here not so long ago. This surprised me because there were no strangers in our remote places. Such thoughts only made things worse. My heart began to beat even faster. I started calling Maria. I shouted, whistled, made noise, but no one answered me or responded. Every bush and every rustle gave me hope, but it was all in vain. I walked along the road immersed in my thoughts and didn't even notice how a lynx came onto the path. She sat motionless and didn't even get scared when I approached. It was as if she was waiting for me. I was surprised. Strange picture. And suddenly I remembered the wild cat and the lynx cub that we fed some time ago. I realized that this was the lynx's mother. As I got closer, the cat turned and walked in front of me. Then she stopped again and stood up, clearly waiting for me to catch up with her. We walked like this for several minutes. I realized that the lynx was leading me somewhere. After a few minutes, she turned off the usual road and went deeper into the forest. She led me through a windfall, branches, and fallen trees. After some time, she stopped at the edge of a shallow ravine, overgrown with tall grass and bushes. I looked into the hole. My wife was lying at the bottom of the beam, and next to her sat a small lynx. It was as if he was protecting Maria. The wife's leg fell into a trap. She had lost a lot of blood and was unconscious. I tried to bring her to her senses, but nothing worked. This is the car that passed here this morning. I analyzed it and realized that they were poachers. They set traps in the forest. These people have no conscience. They don't even think that not only wild animals, but also people walk through the forest. Having cut down several thin aspen trees from their trunks, branches, and ropes, I built a small stretcher to pull my wife out of the beam and drag her to the farm and then call an ambulance. I didn't remove the trap. I was afraid that I might only cause harm. The journey back took several hours. The most difficult thing was to carefully get to the road through windfalls and branches so as not to harm my wife. Along the way, I pulled the stretcher by a rope, like a sleigh in winter. All this time, there was a lynx with a lynx cub next to me. They followed us to the very end of the forest. I was very grateful to these magnificent cats for helping me find my beloved one. I couldn't have done it without them. I might not find her, or it might be too late. They accompanied us all the way to the place from which our farm could be seen. The ambulance arrived quickly. The wound turned out to be serious, but antibiotic treatment did the trick. Maria recovered. There was only a slight limp left, but she is alive, and we are still together And this is the most important thing, and the limp will definitely go away with time. Dear friends, if you like the story, please like and subscribe to the channel. There is still a lot of interesting things to come.